Hello and welcome to Soul's Compass Healing. My name is Brianne Lazinski. I am an evolutionary astrologer and I sincerely welcome you to this channel. If you have not already, please hit the subscribe button, join us. I am always interested in hearing feedback from y'all in the comments section. And if you're interested in the different offerings that I have available for one-on-one readings, you can visit my website. The link is in the description of this video. My Instagram link is there too for more frequent astrology, tracking updates, etc. I am going to be speaking to what eclipse season is all about, broadly speaking. Eclipses are creating the overall cycle blueprint that is going to carry us through the next 6 months. The next 6 moon cycles are going to be colored and toned very much so with this particular eclipse season that we find ourselves in. And this is the 3rd year in a row where we are having a Aries solar eclipse right around this time of year. And we are definitely going to go into what makes this one so unique and standing out from even the others that we have had in recent years. And the reason for this is because the lunar north node is in Pisces. Its ruler, Neptune, is at the anaretic or the last degree of its own sign, Pisces. So whenever a planet is in its own sign, that's an application of energy. Whenever a planet is at the last degree, that vamps it up even more. When the planet is the ruler of the north node, even more. When that planet is conjunct the north node, even more volume up. So as you can see, this is extraordinarily amplified Neptune Pisces energy. So this is unequivocally correlating to the massive collective shakeup that we are feeling right now. It is massive, it is messy, it is chaotic, it is so many different feelings, right? And what's very, very interesting is that right after this solar eclipse, the day after, Neptune is going to be entering Aries for the first time in our lifetimes. Neptune will go retrograde later on this year, and actually will be at 29 Pisces again in December, making its final ingress into Aries in January of next year. But right now we are feeling this this point in the zodiac between Pisces and Aries. It's that 0 point. It's the new phase point. It is the ending and the beginning. And so this can signify death and rebirth. And with what we are seeing with in relation to all of this happening, and there's so much other action happening, which I'm going to get into on the North Node. We have Venus and Mercury retrograde going back over the North Node, back into Pisces this month. We have Saturn in Pisces, in balsamic phase, so in that culminating, completing phase to Neptune. And this is all happening. All of this action is happening on our lunar north node, which represents what we are leaning into for our evolutionary gains. And so having the south node ruler, Mercury, on the north node, retrograde, this is very much so reinstating the fact that we are in a collective crisis. And the more that we come to terms with that reality, the better, because it is for our evolution, right? It is for our evolution to realize where we are at in time as a human species, because this new cycle is already being initiated, right? Saturn balsamic to Neptune, and other things like Saturn being third quarter sextile to Uranus. This moon at the time of this new moon is third quarter balsamic semi-square to Uranus, and so we are seeing on the collective level that we are going to have to detach from life as we have known it up until now, especially when it comes to economics, resources, how we sustain ourselves in the world. That is happening while we are also seeing that this new cycle is already being acted upon, right? The governing structures of our societies are already taking the initiative and taking the power with the assumption that this is not a crisis, that this is a good thing. And throughout this video, I'm going to question all of that. Okay? And so what I want to start this video off by saying is that it can be easy to feel frozen, right? To be in a trauma response right now. It can be easy to feel helpless. And I want to offer compassion for that. And I want to dive into why those feelings can be coming up so strongly right now. I guess, how should I start this? Okay, let's start with Saturn. So Saturn represents our societal norms, right? Our societal conditioning. And what have we been conditioned to do in our society that is very much so running rampant in the collective unconscious, which is volume up like times 5 right now, the collective unconscious, is the issue of suppression, repression, oppression. So we have to, at this stage in the game, we need to, or not the game, the talk that I'm giving, we need to acknowledge the fact that Mars is square Chiron, has been for several months, is exactly square Chiron at the time of this solar eclipse, and therefore this energy will be carried with us for the next 6 months. So this represents the crisis of the pain that we have been through, the crisis and the pain of being born, right? Going over that Aries point of the zodiac. Being born is a crisis. And when we are looking to the collective right now, and we are seeing all of that which has been repressed and shoved down into the collective unconscious, like, go back down there, we don't want to see you, those feelings aren't welcome here, blah, 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 blah. All of that being repressed is now just being vomited up, right? And we're seeing it. We're seeing it everywhere we look. And so this healing journey is messy. It is not the idealistic Pisces where we are culminating all of the old cycles and everything is neat and tidy and we're all organized because, Mercury's on the North Node too with this whole jam. So we're just like, we just got this so in the bag. No. There is attention needing to be paid to the power of process, Mercury, Virgo. The fact that it is a process to be a process to be tending to not only our own wounds, but also the collective wounds, right? And the key is to stay with the process, because what have we, Saturn, been conditioned to do? We have been conditioned to repress our emotions. that our emotions somehow drag us down, that there's somehow an inconvenience, that they get in the way, or worse, that they're evil, right? And so there is this crisis happening in the collective, but also on an individual level where people's mental health and feelings and emotions are all over the map because of this nature of what is repressed will get distorted. And so since we are at this Aries point in the zodiac of this crisis of something new birthing, this new cycle that is beginning, we are going to be in a lot of unknown territory, right? For many of us, this is unprecedented times globally. And so how can we be good neighbors, and how can we be good friends to each other where we actually hold safe space for each other to process these emotions that are coming up and wanting to come out and actually be processed? And not to say that it's, going to be all neat and tidy and, tied up with a bow at the end of the day. That's not the point. But the point is that we need to have this caregiving ability for one another right now. And it is something that I am looking left and right at humanity, and I'm seeing we are starved of it. We are absolutely starved of it. You know? You see one person who has compassion and empathy, and everybody just wants to railroad that one person because it's like so rare to come across humans like that. And so, yeah, we do have a responsibility to one another to hold each other up as we go through this grand shaking that is happening on the collective level. And we are also feeling the grand shakings happening on a personal level. To each our own, it's unique. But yeah, it's so important that we do this because, like I was saying, when those emotions are repressed, there is this automatic distortion of them, and then it is automatically staying as a wound. And it not only does nothing get resolved when we do that, when we just repress our emotions like we've been told to, we actually end up having a lot of the issues that we are seeing when we look into what is going on in humanity right now. Like, for example, displaced anger turning into violence, taking it out on entire populations of people. And so I'm really, really, really really, really hoping that we can see these political power grabs that are happening. That Saturn and Pisces, balsamic to Neptune, like the harsh reality is that these power grabs are really only limited to that which we can imagine that has been stuffed down into the collective unconscious, which is an absolute tragic mess, right? In human history, what has been the prevailing way of governing humans? Has it been colonization, takeovers, oppression, or has it been centered around humanitarian values, right? It's very clear to see where where history has been repeating itself and where we find ourselves today. So this isn't a romantic rebirth. This is hard. This is a crisis, and this is messy, and we're not going to get it perfect, and that's okay. It means that we still show up to the process, is my main point here. And with Jupiter forming a square to the lunar nodes, what we are seeing is that any abuse of power is inherently not right. And what another thing that we are seeing is that pay very close attention. I encourage you to pay very close attention to how information is presented to you in any way or form, because I'm noticing that the wires are being crossed quite intentionally. Good is being portrayed as evil, evil is being portrayed as good, right? So there are wolves in sheep's clothing, and the sheeps are made out to be wolves. And so we need to determine fact from fiction, truth from deception, so that we are not fooled, right? No more blind faith, no more wishful thinking, no more I hope something is going to save us. Because there is an agenda that is being executed currently, it's already happening, and it is not for the collective good. It is not. That's the bottom line. And so this Aries point that I'm talking about, this ending and this symbolism of something ending and something beginning, represents that the time is now. The time is now to get angry and to have supports in our lives to help us process that anger in healthy and productive ways. Yeah, because we're conditioned. We're conditioned to turn a blind eye from evil. We fully are. And that's another thing that's coming up and out in an extremely distorted way, right? Basically, the program is paint on a smile, right? Everything's haha, jokey, jokey, yep, until it isn't. That's like the prevailing culture that I'm noticing. And it is very, very, very oppressive, right? It basically gives us all very limited modes of expression, modes of emotion, and we are human beings and we have a full spectrum range of emotions and feelings and capacities, and they change on every given day. And so, what I would really like to see come out of this collective crisis as a positive would be us acknowledging our humanness and our messiness, and us actually showing up to support one another in, when we need that extra shouldering up. And when on the days when we feel strong, we shoulder up somebody else, and that's how this works. It's not everybody in this for themselves. And that's what Neptune going into Aries, that's what the prevailing toxic culture is going to be permeating, is, that everybody is in this for themselves and I'm going to get me mine, and that whole thing, which is not true spirituality. True spirituality is, yes, being an individual. That's kind of like the crisis point of it, that we are here on a human journey and having the freedom to initiate our own path, right? That is something that that we need to hold on to, that we need to not give up, you know? Because we each play an individual role, but we're not in it for ourselves. Do you know what I mean? It's like we're in this for the betterment of the collective, and that is I guess when I say we, I'm saying me. Me. And I would love to, be communing with other people who also think like this, because we are up against, the consensus reality that does very much, take in the notion that it is every person for themselves and fight and defend thyself, you know, in our own suffering, when really we can we can be supporting one another in much, much better ways than we have already known. And what this crisis is going to do is going to force us into that. It's going to force us into exploring that territory of support that is unknown to us because it just hasn't been forced into our life up until now. And now it is. Now it's necessary. Whew. What was I gonna say next? Yeah, this really is a grand shakeup. Like to give an analogy, a seabed, right? All the layers of a seabed that have formed over many, many, many thousands of years. If a drill goes into that seabed, it is going to put all of that murky debris into the water, right? And it is going to be messy, and it is a major upheaval, and it is a major disturbance of everything that has been solidified and put in place. And that is a really good analogy for what we are going through right now as a collective. Yeah, this, I guess another note on Mars square Chiron is this crisis in action that we are going through as a collective makes us question what are we doing and how are we going to do it in response to this collective crisis. And I want to remind us to reject the delusion that our actions don't hold power, because they do. Actions always speak louder than words. And we can use our power to stand up for humanitarian rights, for safety, and for justice. And as crazy as these times that we are in are, this can be a major initiation for several of us who are going to be called up to be warriors in the sense of standing up for humanitarianism. And again, it's not romantic. It's coming out of a very real necessity, right? And so this can be contributing to all of the anxiety and depression and other mental health issues that are absolutely running rampant right now, right? As everybody is feeling what is going on collectively. It is virtually impossible. Like, I know that everyone responds to these things in different ways. Some are the ostrich that stick their heads in the sand. But I feel like right now, even those ostriches are having a hard time numbing out what is going on. And there is a certain small group of us who are rolling up our sleeves and are like, okay, let's get to work here. And it is not going to be easy. It's going to be in the trenches doing the hard shit that we did not think that we would be doing at this point in our lives. You know? So my main point of what I want to say regarding mental health is that the mental illness that we are seeing running rampant right now is a symptom of our toxic culture, is a symptom of repressing everything being the go-to motto for our culture. Is a direct response and reaction to the oppression, the abuse, the gaslighting, the wool being pulled over our eyes en masse. Okay, I want to talk about Venus going retrograde. She's going to be within 1 degree of Neptune at the time of this solar eclipse, and just like with Mercury going all the way back into touching base with Saturn at the tail end of Pisces there before they station direct later on in April. or early on in April. Um, but yeah, what I want to say about Venus, because Venus can really represent the Libra side of Venus can be a representation of justice, right? And when I'm observing what is going on out there in the world and I'm observing this review that we are very, very, very quickly, as a collective, realizing, okay, we need to review uh, what the word justice actually means. You know, because as I have said before, there is definitely deception and word twisting and wires being crossed here in terms of how things are presented. So it's really about Venus retrograde is really about wanting to uncover the truth. Like, how actually can we get to justice right now? And um, and justice for all in Pisces. Like, I mean, that's that's such a complex and um, overwhelming for the human brain to even begin to compute. But it is something that we need to be in process with, right? We're not going to see justice for all by the end of our lifetimes or the next thousands of lifetimes, but we are here to be in the process, to in service to Mercury conjunct Venus retrograde. That's what we're here to do. Um, and one thing that I want to say, collectively speaking, uh, because Venus has a Taurus side and she has a Libra side, right? So there is the oh God, um, there is whew, thanks for bearing with me. I am very overwhelmed right now, and I'm surprised that I made it to this point of the video without crying. But yeah, this just came out of nowhere. And this is where we're at. Neptune, 29 Pisces. Yeah. Um. It's so important. So important to be emoting right now. And I guess what's making me tear up in this moment is what I'm about to say is there's countries that are looking within themselves and taking an internal analysis of, okay, what resources do we have as a country to sustain ourselves, Taurus side of Venus, and then they're looking to other countries and saying, okay, what resources do these other countries have that we could trade with because we need those resources to help our economy, etc. Right? And so this is having a massive shakeup as we're seeing right now. And so there is so much opportunity for uh, for new alliances to be made and for uh, the powers that be globally to be shifting right now. And it really, really, really is up to us. You know, Venus is like people power. It is really up to us to exercise our voice, Venus together with Mercury, to be a part of this conversation as a populace, and no longer just, you know, surrendering to the status quo, no longer just surrendering to, okay, well, the government decided it, so that's just the way it is. And I'm really, really, really hoping that we can shoulder each other up to get us through this learned helplessness that has gotten us into the situation that we find ourselves in. That's a whole other topic in and of itself, which I'm not going to get into, obviously. But personally speaking, the uh, the Venus retrograde can be bringing up so much on the personal level too, right? Where it's like, as I said before, past relationships, past life relations coming back in, wanting to, you know, tie up loose ends, and that is always a messy ordeal. It's never straightforward. It always feels like, things are coming out of left field and you don't know what or why just happened the way it did. And so it's, yeah, again, adding to that accumulation of this crisis point that we find ourselves in. And so to be feeling it personally is like, whoa, it's a lot right now. And another thing that I want to say, in relation to what I was talking about, how our conditioning, Saturn, is to repress, to suppress. Um, and what happens when this gets played out in relationships, and with Venus doing her thing right now, is that we are seeing everything that was repressed or denied in relationships is just coming right out, you know? And it's like, um, oh, what was I going to say about that? Just totally lost my train of thought. Um, oh, yeah, this is what I wanted to say about that. I want to say that we as individuals, when we suppress and deny parts of ourselves or our shadow, those are the parts of ourselves that are running us. Therefore, that's how we operate in relationships, is from that perspective of whatever it is that we are denying. So, for example, if we are in denial that we have anger, and we go about our lives, taking anger out in other people's lives, coworkers, when really the source of the anger is with the parents, for example. It's like that is driving the ship, and unless people become aware of it, right, shining the light of awareness on it, it will continue to run the ship, because we're talking about the unconscious. The unconscious just runs without us having to pay any attention to it. So this is really the severity that we're at personally, as well as collectively, at realizing what we have been denying and repressing, because it's all coming up now, rearing its ugly head. And what's really important to remember in these times is a lot of compassion for self and others, as well as not taking shit from ourselves or others, and being reminded not to project ultimate meaning onto anybody, because we are all human, and there is nobody here who is higher or lower than anybody else. And that's the truth. And so when we cast and project onto people more or less what they are, eventually disillusionment will happen, and it will hurt, and we will need to confront that which we have denied and repressed, or blown up and made into some fantasy. Yeah, I feel like I have blabbered on enough. I am going to close this video now. Thank you so much for listening. I really do appreciate you being here. I am sending you so much compassion and love right now during this heavy, heavy, overwhelming eclipse season, and hoping that we can together find ways to shoulder each other up and take care of one another during this time of collective crisis that feels very, very real. And so I will talk with you next month.